I received a phone call from my mechanic a couple of days ago. Was nothing extraordinary, just the usual follow-up phone call. How you doing? It's been a while. We haven't seen you in a while. That type of phone call. Now, it's something that we should all be doing in our businesses. Follow-up calls. Well, first of all, we shouldn't be following up. We should be following through on prior commitments. But that's a subject for another episode. When you limit yourself to follow up calls, you're just calling without an agenda. And that whole thing of, hey, what's up? I just wanted to say, how you doing? I just say, make I greet you. How's madam? How are the kids? All those conversations, they're nice. But ultimately, those conversations go nowhere. And by the time you make those calls 3 or 4 times over the year, you become more of like a hassle. No, not a hassle. What's the word? Hassle is too strong. A bother or an inconvenience to your clients, because you're going to make these phone calls that have no agenda and that go nowhere, and you guys drone on, through the pleasantries. Kind of like how people in England, have those conversations about the weather. Like, oh, how's the weather today, and all those pointless conversations. So actually, in a business context, we shouldn't be following up. We should be following through. That means that in our business communications, we should have a specific agenda that we're pursuing and some prior thing that we had agreed on before, so that when I call you now, there's an agenda for moving the conversation forward. Well, like I said, that's a conversation for another day. That's a podcast episode for another day. I'll just make a note of that in my list of questions to address. And so let me go back to the original thought for today. So my mechanic calls, and like I said, it's the usual follow-up call, and it's good that he did it. But the thing is, the phone call came too late. Now he's my guy. Been working with him for a while, maybe let's say 3 years, 2-3 years now. He's been my guy, steady. I do the whole thing every 3 months, or before then. If the indicators light up, but I take the car for servicing. I try to service it regularly, so he's my guy, and he sort of should have known. I mean, when you're a mechanic, I really think, or when you're involved in any kind of business, you should sort of know the cadence of your customers, your repeat and your steady customers, so that you can have your follow-up routine built around that cadence. Yeah, let me put it that way. I guess what I'm trying to say is that what is the most efficient way to follow up, and what is the best way to follow up. And if you're going to be following up on folks, remember, I said it's best to have follow-through conversations, not follow-up conversations. But I'm going to explain that in a future episode. So the best way to follow up on your clients and your customers is actually to use the cadences around their needs, their use, or around the nature of your product. And so I'm going to use this mechanic as an example, and I'm going to use my own situation as a wedding photographer also as an example. Then you guys, wedding planners, cake artists, MCs, whoever it is, or if you happen to be another industry not related to the wedding and the event space, the principles are still the same. So this is how you follow up. So for the mechanic, the call was too late because I had some dissatisfactions about the car, and of course I saw the second opinion, and basically I've done like 2 or 3 rotations with another mechanic, and my old mechanic, calls me up now, follow-up call. But the thing is, we've already missed 2 or 3 rotations, and if you're in business and you're on top of your game, and somebody's been doing business with you, coming back routinely, every 3 months, it really should not take 2 or 3 rotations. So 3 months, 2-3 rotations, that's like what, 9 months? Just say 9 months, close to a year, before you realize like, oh, this guy hasn't come back again. So first off, to be on point with your follow-up game, you need to have some form of CMS platform, they call customer management system. You need to have some sort of customer management system, some customer management game that you've got going on. Now, There are lots of complicated, fancy, expensive ones out there, Salesforce and, blah de blah. I'm not going to point you guys towards any of those ones because, quite frankly, for those of us who are running businesses where it's just us and a couple of other people, you and 5 or 6 subcontractors, because you don't really have employees, like that per se, because that's how, at least in Abuja anyway, with the people that hang around, that's how most of us pretty much do it. So you're a wedding planner, and yes, you have an office admin on staff and maybe a cleaner on staff, but the other people are pretty much subs that you call in when you need them. Like, oh, okay, this wedding is coming up, and then you call and you pay them on a per day basis or a per hour basis or whatever. So for those of us who run these kind of setups, we don't need that anything that elaborate, anything that fantastic. There's some people who do it through a diary. I used to do it through Evernote, but currently I'm just using Google Calendar, and that's because my video guy Shegun used to razz me a lot about me and my Evernote thing and how Google Calendar just makes more sense. And well, anyway, I've crossed over and so I'm on Google Calendar now. So the thing is, whatever it is you do, whether you use a diary or you use excuse me, so whether you use a diary or you use post-it notes or you use Google Calendar or you have some note-taking facility on your phone, you need to have a way of tracking customer A. This is the last time I saw him. These are the things we spoke about. This is what we did, and then you schedule a future action further out, based on that last conversation. So in this case, if you're a mechanic and I show up routinely every 3 months, when I show up on the 1st of January and you service the car, you make a note in your whatever it is, in your Google Notes, your Evernote, okay, let's say because you're a mechanic, you're not too fancy. So I don't know, you write it down on a scrap of paper, whatever it is. This is what Oga Kunle came for. We changed spark plugs, we changed oil, we changed wheel bearings, we changed windshield wipers, and let's say we changed the back tires. And yes, Oga Kunle goes on his way. So first thing you do is you take it and you push it out for 1 week. You call him up, you say, Oga Kunle, how far? All the work we did last time, everything is okay. Share tire, oh, wow, okay. Engine oil, oh, wow, okay. This one is okay. Share that one is okay. Be sure that Oga Kunle is happy. If it's cool, then no problem. And if spark plugs are routinely replaced every 6 months, then what you do is you now take your calendar and then you push it 6 months out in advance, because reasonably speaking, the average person will get his spark plugs changed or replaced or whatever, or cleaned or serviced every 6 months. I'm just guessing. So you cow buffs, please don't send me any messages that I got it wrong, that spark plugs is more like 1 year. So I'm just guessing. And so that's how it's done. You just schedule it back. If you did spark plugs January 1st, then, and it's roughly 6 months for the average person, then that means you should be calling him January, February, March, April, May, June. So that means 1st of June, you should hit him up. You should call him up, say, Oga Kunle, how you doing? I hope the car is not stalling. I hope it's not jerking. Because we did spark plugs in January, so we might have to look at that now. In fact, Oga Kunle, when you're free, just pass through. Let me look at it. No charge. Let me just look and be sure that it's okay. If it's that it's dirty and it needs servicing, then yeah, you pay. But if it doesn't need servicing, let me just look at it. Then no problem. Just be sure everything is okay, and then you be on your way. Or if it's general servicing, and like I used to come in every 3 months, then you push it out in your calendar 3 months. 3 months from there. And so if I come 1st of January, that means January, February, March. So 1st of March, you call the customer up, Oga Kunle, how far? Yeah, you came in January. I think it's about time for the next service. Okay, looks like the car is functioning okay, but no problem. Just pass through anyway. There's no charge. Let me have a look. Let me be sure that everything is okay. If there's anything that needs tweaking or servicing, then yeah, we can do it for you free, or maybe you pay money if we need to get parts, like for spark plugs or changing engine oil and then things like that. But basically, this is how it is that follow-up ought to be done. You can't just leave it to your memory, because by the time you remember, it might be too late. Like this mechanic now, for instance, was my guy for 3 years. You could remember after 2 or 3 rotations, and that's maybe like 1 year. By the time your customer hasn't showed up for 1 year, I mean, clearly he's moved on, and it might be too late to try and rescue the relationship. Now, you can see how, with these scenarios that I've explored, the cadence for follow up has been determined by, number one, the customer's cadence. So, let's say you're a cake artist, the lady came for the wedding cake, she was really impressed. Let's see what else. She referred you to a couple of people, and then maybe she showed up when her own daughter was born, and then she's been coming back, every year. Now, when you get that kind of nice client, at the very least, you should be following up at the very least every year. Because, I mean, she's been good to you. After the wedding, she sent you 2 or 3 people, and she's been doing her daughter's cake with you, every 2 or 3 years. You should have a level of some proactivity in this. You should, really. Because at some point, she might be dissatisfied with your product, with your cakes, or with your service. But if you don't call her, you'll never know. She'll just move on. And one day you just realize that, oh, what date is this? It's December. But Tunike usually calls in August because of her daughter's birthday. But by then it's too late. She's moved on. She's found another person. And then you're now doing that whole, oh, I'm just calling to greet you. How is your daughter? You shouldn't even be calling to say, how is your daughter? In your CMS, in your contact management system, your customer management system, whether you're using a diary or a footnote, you should have it there. Tunuke, married, so. So these are the people that she referred. Her daughter's name is Julian. Julian, born 1st of October, 1990, whatever, or 2000 and whatever. You should have it there. So you shouldn't call up and say, how's your daughter? You call up and say, how is Julian? How is she doing? She must be 5 years old right now, right? Okay, so you guys have been getting ready for primary school. Sister, the Lord is your strength. I remember that primary school level, blah, blah, blah. And, you spin that conversation. I'm sure you guys know how to do stuff like that and get real personal. At least much better than I do anyway. And, that's how the follow-up game ought to be done. Sometimes the customer has already established the cadence. Just go with the cadence and you'll be fine. So if it's the cake thing, you're a cake artist, she's been showing up every year, then at the very least, you should be buzzing her every year. And you should have all those details down. Her name. Let's say it's her husband's cake that she usually buys. You should know the husband's name. What else? A fair idea of what it is that they do, so that in follow-up conversations, it's not just as if you're calling her the hassle for the order of the cake, but you're calling to check up on them. How are they doing? How's her career? How is Oga Kunle's career? How's the daughter going? Blah, blah, blah. If you're one of those people who likes to weave politics into the conversation, you guys can have that whole thing about, under this Buhari economy, blah, blah, blah. Keep it personal. And that whole thing. So, at the very least, follow up with their cadence. So now, away from customer cadence, another way that you can build your follow-up is around the demands of your product or your service. I already gave that example with the mechanic, that let's say you change spark plugs in January, the average human being runs it down in every 6 months or every 1 year or whatever. Then you build that cadence around that. That's something that people in the software space do typically. So if somebody buys antivirus, let's say if somebody buys, you have a big client, they buy hundreds of antivirus licenses from you in January. Antivirus, of course, is renewed every year. So you now know that if they bought in January, you probably have to start calling them September or so to be sure that they're happy, and to remind them, okay, renewal is coming up. Are we going to be going ahead? Stuff like that. Not that they bought in January, but then you just fashion it, and then you wake up February next year and wonder like, oh, these people haven't showed up again. I wonder what happened. We have to be proactive about these things. So, the cadence of what it is that you actually supply. So like for me, I'm a wedding photographer. So our whole thing, for those of us who are wedding photographers and videographers, is special occasions and personal milestones. And so for us, follow-up cadences should be built around that. They got married in January, and So they're off for the honeymoon. I mean, worst case scenario, 3 months of flexing and enjoyment, and then they're back to normal life. So if you call them 3 months just to say what's up, how you guys doing, it's not a bad idea. You call them before the first wedding anniversary. If you've done a good job, and if you take the advice that one of my friends gave me of following them both on your Instagram, of course you'd have been up to date with the personal trends in their life. Like let's say they're expecting a baby and they did that whole baby reveal and everything. I mean, following them on social media, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, you kind of get a sense of what is going on with their careers and then in their personal lives, and you can build conversations around that. Like one of my previous clients who had been keeping in touch with the wife steady, but then found out on LinkedIn that they got their medical startup going. And really, that's how me and the groom, started really talking, because me and the wife were cool on the personal level, but me and the groom, we didn't really talk like that per se. But now that they have this whole startup going, and I like business. Business is my thing. So that's kind of like on the level on which we gel now. And it's because I saw it on LinkedIn that congratulates so and so because they have started so and so Incorporated Startup Inc. on 1st of January, blah blah blah. And so I called them up, and the conversation starts like that. Anyway, so forgive me if this episode has not been as structured as most of my other episodes usually are. It's just because it's, I received the conversation. It's such a shame. He's a nice dude. The thing is, actually, I'm going to go back to him because I'm still dissatisfied with this new guy. But, last, what's that thing? The angel or is it, when you're suffering because of lack of options? So, yeah, I'm definitely going to go back to him. But I'm just making this episode because it'll be a pity if there's someone listening to this podcast right now who is really a kick-ass photographer, or you're a really sick cake artist, or you're a really correct wedding planner, like you're on point when it comes to MC or whatever it is, like you're really dope. So it'll be a pity if you're losing on repeat business and referrals just because you are down on your follow-up game. Just because, number one, you don't know any better, so you're doing the typical Nigerian thing where you call up and say, I just say make I greet you, I just say make I hail. That's not the way to follow up. And also because you don't have a customer management system or a contact management system. It doesn't have to be fancy. The way I do it, I just use my Google Calendar. I call this person, the wedding was done 1st of January, and then I'll push it out. Okay, let's say thing was done 1st of January, the album was delivered 3 weeks later. I'll push out, I'll just simply put it on my Google Calendar. I'll push it back maybe 2 or 3 months just to call them and say, hello, how's the honeymoon? How you guys getting on? I hope madam is not policing you too much. I hope you're not sparking too much for her. Just all that, useless, idle conversation. And after we're done with that conversation, I'll push it back again for the first wedding anniversary. And then I keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Yeah. So that's it pretty much. So you can see that the way that I do it and the way that the ways that it can be done don't have to be fancy. Your mobile phone is fine. You just put it on Google Calendar and just keep pushing. If you use Evernote, then that's fine. The principle is still the same. The advantage of using Evernote and all these other things are that Evernote allows you to store documents, and so you're going to be able to keep invoices, payment records, things like that. That's the disadvantage of using calendars only, like Google Calendar, because I can't store invoices on the calendar, I can't store documents on the calendar. But if you want to be really detailed and you're using something like Evernote or Trello, you'll be able to have a complete client history there. You'll have all the dates you need. They got married on so date. You will have the PDF of the contract you guys signed. It will be stored there. What else? You'll also have invoices, maybe even pictures. Because there was a former client who, she's really over the moon about her daughters, about her kids, and she will send me pictures a lot of the time. And so, I would just keep the pictures. If for nothing else, it's kind of somehow when you're dealing with a client, you guys have been talking real personal about kids and everything, and then you see them in person, and then you're saying, "Oh, how old is your older daughter? How old is your younger daughter?" That's not really nice. You can't remember everything in the world, so just put it down there. Daughter's name, Adenike, the second one, Kumbi, and then you have their pictures there. You see them in person, it's real nice because you'll be able to just flow and carry on the conversation. You say, Nike, how are you? You're 10 years old this year, right? Oh, very good. Hope you've been a good girl for mommy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I guess I'm going on too long. Next time I'll just jot down something so that the conversation will be much more structured. But I hope I've been able to give an idea about how follow-up doesn't have to be complicated. Use the cadence that your customer has already established, or use the cadence of your industry or your product or your service to determine how it is that you are going to follow up on your clients. And then expect a future episode where I explain in much more detail the difference between following up and following through, because as professionals we should be following through and not just calling up to say, "I say make I greet you." So, that's it. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I will catch you guys at the next recording. Hopefully tomorrow, if I don't get distracted or waylaid by something else. So I'll catch you guys then. Everyone, have a wonderful day.